Hello, my name is Amy Sturkey. I am a pediatric physical therapist, and I am so excited for you to meet our next guest. This person has, I think, a challenging but encouraging story, and I am just so excited for you to get to meet her. I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Hello, my name is Christiana, but you can call me C for short.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I have spastic quadriplegia and ataxic cerebral palsy. I am 29 years old, and I live in my very own apartment with 2 cats and a dog.
Next, I'd like to ask you about where you fall in the gross motor function classification system. Let's just talk about what that is real quick. It is a tool to help describe people on the type of cerebral palsy they have and how involved they are on a physical level. So just generally, someone who is a level 1 is someone who can walk independently, go up and down stairs independently, can walk and run. A level 2 person is someone who can walk independently, but would have trouble jumping and running and would need to use the rail to go up and down the stairs. A level 3 person is someone who uses a mobility device to help them move around, so they might use a walker or a forearm crutch or a cane, or they might propel themselves in a manual wheelchair. A level 4 person is someone who uses a wheelchair primarily throughout the day. They might use a power wheelchair. They can help with transfers and help with standing some. And a level 5 is someone who is much more significantly involved, who might have trouble holding up their head and neck and is really dependent on a wheelchair for mobility and a caregiver to help take care of them. They might still use a power wheelchair, but much more limited in their abilities. So, given that, C, can you tell us where you are on this scale?
From birth until 28 years of age, I was probably a 4. This past year, I am a 3, moving towards a 2.
Wow, that is amazing. Because the research says that usually, once you're 5 years old, you don't really change much from one level to the next level. But what you're saying is it's possible to move up through multiple different levels. That's incredible. I can't wait to hear more about that in the future. I have so many people ask me, and that is such a good sign. Thank you so much for sharing that. Can you tell us a little bit about your early life?
Sure thing. I was born in rural Romania, outside of a hospital, shortly after the fall of communism. My mother and my siblings lived in third world country conditions due to being an ethnic minority. My mother had tuberculosis and was severely underweight at the time of my birth. Both me and my mother had breathing issues in the first few months of life. We went to a hospital where she was immediately quarantined. I got moved into an overcrowded state institution for the incurable children. I spent 2 years in the institution. The conditions were really bad due to Ceausescu's regime. The other babies and I stayed all day in the cribs except for feeding time. I know I got held in a worker's lap because I couldn't hold myself up. I developed rickets due to lack of nutrition as well as lack of sunlight. I don't believe the workers had the capacity to work with us on language due to overcrowding. Around 3 years of age, I was taken to the United States without the consent of my parents. The person who took me was very abusive and angry. I will not use their name, but will only refer to them as the abusive caregiver going forward. My malnutrition continued because I could not feed myself well, and I still couldn't crawl.
I am so glad you have brought this up. The research is troubling. It says that children with cerebral palsy are 3 times more likely to experience abuse or neglect, and adults with cerebral palsy are 2 times more likely than the general population to experience abuse and neglect. The abuse tends to be due to the physical limitations of the person with cerebral palsy and the potential dependence on a caregiver. The types of abuse that people with cerebral palsy tend to receive are physical, emotional abuse, or neglect, sexual abuse, and as they get older, it can be financial abuse as well. I think that a significant portion of abuse is from caregivers, at least that's what the research says. And this happens especially when there's a power imbalance between the caregiver and the individual, and also when there's poor oversight between the caregiver and the individual. I know this is really hard for you to talk about, and I'm sure this brings up fears of retaliation by caregivers, but I think it's so important for people to talk about this, to make it more aware so people can look out for this and look at as individuals who have cerebral palsy, and also for caregivers who might see a child who they think might be in an abusive situation. Thank you. So we can get a bigger picture of where you are at this point in your life. Can you tell us about your early motor milestones?
Yes, my milestones were pretty late. I crawled around age 5, and I didn't speak much beyond yes or no until I was 10 years old. I do know that I had thoughts inside my own head, and I liked to play and explore my mind. I just didn't have much to say outwardly. I don't know when I started standing. My mother, Georgica, actually crawled my whole life due to malnutrition eating away her muscles. She did ultimately die of starvation when I was 19 years old.
Oh, wow. So now you're in the United States and you're under the care of an abusive and angry caregiver. And it sounds like, from what you're saying, you fell right into the category of people who are more likely to be abused because of your physical limitations, your dependence on a caregiver, and your limitations in language to be able to explain to people what's going on to you. Are you willing to share what happened next?
When I was 7 years old, Child Protective Services started to be involved, but only recommended therapy to the abusive caregiver, which was very frustrating. By the time I was 9, school noticed I had vision problems, so they strongly encouraged the abuser to take me to an eye doctor. I did have strabismus surgery, and now I have lazy eyes instead of crossed eyes. In between 9 years old and 14, I was still stuck in a very abusive environment. By the time I was 14, my mental health issues got noticed. Yay! I would be taken away from the abuser and put in residential programs for 3 to 4 months at a time, and then sent back for like a month or so, and then back to residential programs. And it went on like this until I was 16 years old.
Oh my goodness, this is really tough. It seems like it's going from bad to worse for you. I'm so sorry. Can you share what happens next?
Actually, the institution was the most dire, and residential programs were a huge upgrade in quality of life. Things started to get better. I was back in contact with my mom and my siblings, and I was permanently taken away from the abuser, and I never had to go back. Woo woo! Moving up in the world. Probably the third coolest thing is when I was living in a mental hospital, a nurse was like, "Your gait is whack." I didn't know what gait was. All I knew is that I was in constant pain from Charlie horses. I would also frequently ask to have my legs cut off. You know, normal stuff. The other kids would tell me that I walked with a gangsta lean. I would also frequently crawl, which I thought was normal at any age because my mother was older than me and she crawled too. Finally, at 16 years old, I got diagnosed with spastic quadriplegia and ataxic cerebral palsy.
Oh my goodness, this sounds like this might be a good place to stop for now. I just want to thank you for your bravery and your willingness to share the experiences of your life. I just know that this unfortunately does happen to other people, and I think it would be validating for them to hear your story and maybe have the bravery to make changes in their lives too. So thank you so much. If you suspect abuse, it is critical to get the person the help they need. I know that it might seem official or you might not want to get involved in other people's business, but remember, it is critical that you help people who cannot help themselves. Remember, reporting abuse is anonymous. and the effects of abuse are lifelong. It affects an individual's ability to have relationships with others in the future. It affects their self-esteem. And it's also important to break cycles of abuse. People who are abused are more likely to be abusive in the future, or a person who is abusive is more likely to abuse other people in the future. So it's critical that you stop the cycle of abuse. I just know that this is a hard topic, but it's so important, and I really appreciate C for being able to talk through these issues. I hope this is helpful, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye for now. Thank you so much for watching.
If you liked this video and would like to be notified by email when the next video comes out, click the subscribe button here and click the golden bell icon and ensure notifications are enabled on your account.